by the very nature of what they were, they looked a lot like the pictures, and not a one of them got picked up.
Oh, the donuts look like the diseases?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It just that association alone. Like,
I'm going to go through the drive-thru at Krispy Kreme and order a box of chlamydia.
Well, on the blurb for the beginning of the episode.
Welcome to the Beacon House Podcast, recorded live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
I got it. I got the best idea. We should do another live show.
That didn't take long, did it?
Well, the last one was in February. It's been at least 2 months.
Well, gee, Casey, that's a great idea. You know, why don't we do one in like 1 week?
Ooh, that'll be kind of tough. Oh, wait, we already shot a promo video. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So how's it going, everybody out there? First off, before we get into this episode, I'm one of your hosts, Spencer.
I'm Casey.
I'm Hunter.
All right.
Shut up over there, Hunter. Yeah, we got a couple announcements to make at the top of this episode. So stick with us before we get into whatever we're going to talk about today. We are doing our next live podcast event at Central Depot. We did one there before. Hopefully you guys checked out the episode. We're going to be there in 1 week. You probably, if you're hearing this on Thursday, a little less than a week. If you're catching it on Wednesday night when this episode comes out, it's going to be literally 1 week from tonight. May 29th, 7 to 11 at Central Depot in the Old City in Knoxville. We've got some special guests. Case, when you tell them who our special guests are?
I got my wonderful friend Chase Dyer coming out to do a little guest spot with us, and also maybe do a little stand-up. And we also have the wonderful Brandon Harmon, who's going to also hop on the episode with us and then shred it with you two
That's
at
right.
the end and close out with a real good
Brandon
musical
Harmon
number.
Coming back for his revenge. He was supposed to be at the last one. He got sick, and he's coming back to show you how it's done this time. So we're real excited about it.
Good thing Central Depot doesn't have a pool table, because I would take him to town.
That's possibly true.
Rake him across the pool table.
He'd rake him across the yard.
No, that's only for Spencer.
Anyway, so yeah, we want you guys to come out, hang out with us, hang out with the fun people at Central Depot, our friend Will, everybody involved. Just come out and be on the podcast. We're going to have an open mic. If you want to come up, we're going to ask questions. We're going to have lots of games. Casey, you got anything planned for this live event?
I do, actually. One of the
always
things,
got some fruity little games to plan.
I actually have a game that I borrowed the idea from a wonderful podcast I listen to every week, the Rooster Teeth podcast.
Yeah.
And they do a segment on that show called Gavin or Google, where they take one of their comical guys who's on the podcast, and they auto type in something on Google, and they have him autofill, and they have Google autofill it. And then other people decide whose autofill is what.
Oh, so sense. Okay. So if you were like type one in, and me and Hunter were like if you were to go, okay, Spence, is this Spencer finishing this sentence or Google?
Exactly.
Right.
And I use like the top searches. Like one of the ones I want to do is, why does my wife? And then I'm going to ask Hunter how to finish that sentence, and then I'm going to type it in Google and have it finish. I've already done that one, and I already have the one picked out from Google, and it's horrible, and I can't wait.
Perfect. Okay, that's really good. So you're going to get that ready for everybody?
Yes. I'm putting that together.
So we both use Google to do that, or
I'm going to use
like,
Google.
for instance, if one of them said, why does my wife try to get me to pick up the house all the time? And the other one said, understand that The Dirt is the best movie fucking ever. It's probably going to know which one I put.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're going to autofill it.
Not because The Dirt's that great, just because I'm not married, you know?
I'll explain it to you after, whenever I sit down with you, because I need like probably about 30 minutes with this guy, because I think Hunter is going to say some weird shit.
Okay, cool. So yeah, everybody come armed, ready to say some wacky shit. And also, we are going to record this. So this will be a future episode. This will probably, in fact, maybe take the place of a future mailbag episode, or it's just going to be the next Beacon House live episode. So come out, hang out with us, and have some beers, have some fun, listen to some songs. You know, just it's going to be a wonderful, merry night of cheer.
Now, let's get real sad with it.
That's right, because there's been a death. You were very affected by this death.
Yes, the death of my pride. No, I am super bummed out.
That's right.
Because Friday morning, I found out that a legend died.
Okay.
Someone that brought smiles to my face on a daily basis, and was the greatest meme of all time, in my opinion, Grumpy Cat, or Tartar Sauce. Tartar Sauce has passed away at the age of 7. I believe it was due to a bladder infection. Yeah. And I feel horrible.
I recently had to take one of my cats was acting a little weird, and I took him to the vet, and he turned out okay. But one of the first things they checked for was bladder infection. So apparently that's a thing that's a real serious thing that affects a lot of cats. So if your cat's acting weird, get him checked for a bladder infection. No serious business.
My cat passed away due to kidney failure. So it's
serious business.
She was also 18 years old, so don't be super sad about it.
So the Grumpy Cat's actual real life name was Tartar Sauce.
Tartar Sauce, the world's grumpiest cat. And I know other people have like, what if this cat was actually grumpier? Shut the fuck up. Grumpy Cat was Tartar Sauce. And it was a legend. And no matter what the meme was or what the video was or how stupid it was, it always brought a smile to my face looking at this cat with a perma frown.
I heard there was a I guess the way people cope with sadness, you try to find like something related but a little brighter. It was Jesus holding Grumpy Cat, and he says, I died for your sins. Then it's Grumpy Cat, and he goes, good.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I know there's the one meme where it's a 4-panel meme, and it shows the Grim Reaper, and it's like, usually it's a dog, and like the dog's like, what happened? He's like, oh, you died. And he's like, was I a good boy? And the Grim Reaper goes, no, I heard you were the greatest. And it's like super sweet and sad. But they did one with Grumpy Cat where they were like, he was like, Grumpy Cat, and he's like, am I dead? And he's like, yes. And he's like, was I a good meme? And he was like, I heard you were the greatest. And the Grumpy Cat's like, I don't care. So I love it. I thought Grumpy Cat was the greatest. Never met him in real life, but really sad he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sad anytime an animal dies.
You guys don't care.
It's weird though.
Everyone made fun of me. They're like, "Why are you upset?" I'm like, "Cause it's Grumpy Cat. It's like
this is the
legend.
first time I feel like
screw those people.
We've seen anybody that was upset over the death of a meme. I find that odd. That says a lot about.
It's not really the meme.
It's the cat, though.
Of course, and you know how I'm crazy about cats, so I'm sad anytime a cat dies. But it's the position that cat held in a lot of people's lives was from being this meme. Isn't that weird?
It's a little odd. I'll give you that. I mean, look at this picture with him in a birthday hat.
Oh yeah, I remember when it was big. I remember when that like pictures of that cat were all over the internet. It was insane.
Yeah.
God, I haven't gone down a Grumpy Cat meme lane in a while. It's
it's wonderful.
It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Just type in Grumpy Cat on Instagram and your life will be completely filled with joy. You have depression, look up Grumpy Cat. It's anti-depression.
That might be a little bit of a stretch, but
absolutely.
To each his own. Why not? Well, we are sad that the cat's gone. And obviously, if there was this creature in this meme that brought a lot of joy to everybody's lives, then we're sorry that that's over too. Because God knows we can use all the fucking joy we can get.
I think, honestly, the way I felt about Grumpy Cat passing away was the exact same way I felt about Leslie Nielsen finding out he passed away. Because I was a big Naked Gun and Airplane fan.
Wow. Oh, dude, I heard some things about Airplane. I found for anybody that wants another podcast to listen to, as soon as you get done with this one, go check out, literally this week, Dean Del Rey from the Let There Be Talk podcast. He had the guy that played Ted Stryker on Airplane.
Really?
Robert Hayes on his podcast. And it was fascinating. Fascinating to hear about. First off, did you know that Airplane is the most successful comedy ever?
Wouldn't surprise me.
And here's why. Because it sold so many tickets. I think it made something like $100 million off of a $3 million budget. Now, Ghostbusters made more, but it was $75 million to make it or something like that. As far as like cost versus return, Airplane supposedly is literally the most successful comedy that's ever been shot, which doesn't surprise me a bit. I think it's possibly the greatest comedy ever shot. Easily the best slapstick movie of all.
Oh, yeah.
Easily, it completely revolutionized cinematic humor. But man, he talks about like how dry the humor was when they were starting out, all this crazy stuff, how much of it was ad-lib. Like there's a part where he's juggling, that was totally ad-libbed. They're like, hey, can you juggle? And they just threw him a bunch of balls and he did it. But it's so good, man. I would recommend anybody that's a fan of comedy or especially the movie Airplane, go check out Robert Hayes on the Dean Del Rey podcast.
It's perfectly absurd, that movie is.
It's super, super good, man. But yeah, that was a shining ray of light in my week this week to be able to listen to that.
Surely you can't be serious. I am. My name's not Shirley.
Yeah. Or Don't Call Me Shirley.
Don't Call Me Shirley.
Yep. Maybe the most quotable movie ever. Right up there with Caddyshack.
And
Predator.
Monty Python. Holy
True.
Grail.
That's true. So
and The Princess Bride.
God, The Princess Bride. Amazing.
Well, you asked us to do a little homework. And so I did a little bit about this subject, but I kind of want you guys to talk about it first because no one really cares about what I think when it comes to political and social aspects of life.
Well, and it's hard to find out. Okay, look, spoiler, here's what we're talking about. We're talking about some laws were passed very recently, and they were the laws that they were passed in. There's actually several states, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, are all trying to put laws into litigation that would put a ban on abortion, okay? And these laws would effectively cause abortion to be a felony. If somebody gets an abortion, that's a felony. And the reason I think that we need to talk about this, man, is this affects a lot of people. This affects a lot of really intelligent women that I know. And I'm not saying it affects them because they're about to get an abortion or they had it, whatever.
Yeah.
It affects them because they have a really strong opinion. This has offended a lot of very intelligent, very strong, smart women that
it should have offended anybody with a fucking soul.
Okay. Well, then we get into that. I want to know why it's because somebody voted for it. So I do kind of want to put a disclaimer out there, and I also want to say I reached out to some friends of ours that are mothers and very intelligent women that are outspoken and they have a lot to say about things, and they're not necessarily I don't know their political affiliation or whatever. But I invited him to be on the show because I don't want to just be a bunch of dudes sitting around talking about things that affect women, you know.
Right.
But it affected enough women, and I know at least a lot of them listen to this show, and I feel like that we kind of owe it to them to at least get this out on the Also, it's this big divisive thing. And anytime you see something like that coming down the pike in this country, I think you've got to look at it and go, hold on. Is somebody trying to get us all mad at each other again? And if we are, why? And what's the real issue? Anyway, I kind of just wanted to
look at the keys.
Right. Yeah. So, but I want to say, first off, I don't want to create a podcast episode where we decide if abortion is right or wrong, or we decide when life begins, or we decide what's murder and what's not. Like, I kind of want to proceed with the idea, because that's a big, long, messy conversation. I'm not saying that it's not worth getting into, but I think everybody personally has to kind of address that and figure out where they stand on it. And I don't think there's a right and wrong stance. I think there's a lot of different. I've listened to so many variations on. Does life begin at conception? Does life begin at birth? Does life begin? I mean, Joe Rogan had a real smart. He said, "Look, he goes, it's not one or the other." He goes, it doesn't bother me if somebody has an abortion like 2 weeks after conception. That's a cluster of cells. That doesn't really get to me. 4 or 5 months into a pregnancy, that's different. The process is different. It's not the same thing. This thing at this point has a skeletal structure and a brain and a heartbeat, and it's dreaming, and it's got fingernails, and you know what I mean, like whatever. And then it's late term pregnancies, like 7, 8, 9 month type terminations is a completely different thing. So you've got to figure out, and it's also there's so many different circumstances. There's rape. There's all kinds of
incest.
It's just terrible things like that. Terrible things that we wish didn't exist, but we need for the sake of like having a reasonable discussion here. Maybe we proceed by just acknowledging that abortion is a thing, it exists, and should it be illegal or not? And is this a violation of women's rights to try to ban it? And what do you guys think? You guys have any thoughts?
My personal views on it, which kind of aren't as one-to-one with Joe Rogan's, but similar in as much that they're kind of gray and wavered based on the situation specifically, aside, just universally, and this will normally be my response with any kind of legal thing, is I feel like it is ultimately, in order to uphold what this country is supposed to, that law should not exist, because it is up to the person to decide what to do with their own life, whether that's body or mental things or religious things or whatever, and in this case, abortion. But if we're going to actually be a free nation, then they need to be able to make decisions that you may or may not agree with. And the discourse around that needs to be civil so that people can learn from each other, or learn reasons why they shouldn't be as horrified sometimes, or maybe convince somebody that there's an element of a loss of life to it that they hadn't considered. Both arguments hold plenty of water, which
Right.
is a problem for this.
That is a problem. And the problem is that so much of it is speculative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it comes from so many different personal convictions. And again, I said, we're not going to get into us deciding if abortion is right or wrong. And I think it's important to point out that you could be pro-choice without being pro-abortion.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, but and anybody that would, there's so many different variations on the argument. There's obviously the Christian side of it that says it's not okay to kill a child at any stage of its development, maybe even conceptually, like whatever. But then there's also people that point out, well, then you must believe in the existence of a soul, and if a soul existed, it existed before conception, and it's going to be fine after destruction. And so you're not really killing anything. This is more of a biological issue. So there's all these different dimensions. I'm not saying for the record, whoever's listening to this, before you fucking turn us off, drive off the road, get a machine gun, blow up a convenience store, whatever. I'm not saying I subscribe to any of that, but if you talk and you listen to a lot of people, you're going to hear a lot of different viewpoints. And some of them make really good sense on both sides. And that's the danger, is to think, no, all these people are stupid, but all these people are super. That's what I was going to say. Do you think this is a left and right thing? Is this a Republican versus Democrat issue?
I think it's more of a religious thing.
But most people associate that with the right, even though plenty of people on the left go to church. And
I don't know, though, because I was just looking it up again, and it seems... And now, to be fair, we're going into the 2020 election cycle with a quickness, so on that level, I understand that could be at play, but our president and Republican politicians have apparently distanced themselves, in quotes, from the law in Alabama specifically.
Yeah, I was going to point that out.
So
I don't know if a lot of people understand that, but both Trump and Mitt Romney have been in the press saying that they didn't sign up for this. They don't necessarily support. They support like strict laws on reproductive health and whatnot, but they didn't support this ban on abortion because there's already been Roe versus Wade. The Supreme Court decided that it's going to be a woman's choice. It's going to be legal, and the clinics are going to be allowed to function safely.
And Roe versus Wade had a time period too.
Did it? So it was going to expire?
No, not the law. Sorry.
Okay.
In the law, from what I just read, and it's only one source, so don't come at me if I'm wrong about this.
Right.
But the source, it was something like 26 or 28 weeks, or at whatever point was the cutoff area where they weren't allowed to do it anymore. But up to that point,
sure.
An abortion was legal.
Well, and they're trying to build.
ruling.
They're building layers into this ban. Like they're saying, like I think in Alabama they say it's going to be a felony if you get an abortion, unless there's still a couple of clauses, like if it's going to result in fatality to the mom or something like that, you can get one. And then in Georgia they're saying there's like a heartbeat law where they're saying it's a doctor, as long as the doctor can't detect a heartbeat, it's not a felony. And so there's all these layers they're building into it. So it's not just strictly old white guys that say screw women. You know, it's not. I know that's the way a lot of people are painting this on the internet. And
well, I also there's an element of which I normally don't subscribe to this idea in general, but this one kind of reeks of it to me. An element of keeping people down financially so that they can't move into other areas that people want to isolate and make special and separated.
Sure.
And you would do that by making this a law where not only all the extra medical things that you have to go through now are going to eat your money, but if they don't line up, then you have legal costs thrown on top of it at this point. And that's just exponentially going to make you poorer, or more poor, I guess, is the right grammar.
So you think maybe there's I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, because I haven't heard anybody actually. That's a new dimension to this. I haven't heard anybody bring up. You think maybe some of these lawmakers are trying to make sure that people get sidled with a lot of kids, like you're forced to have the children, so that you're sort of.
And if you don't, you get saddled with a lot of financial debt. So either way, you're unable to.
It's a way to make money off of the people.
Yeah, they get, because that goes into that comes from tax money,
right?
At least the legal side of it, a lot of it, and I. Nothing against first responders, just looking at it from a conspiratorial standpoint.
Sure.
Because that's where my head went. But the idea that would give them money, and the amount of money, even if they didn't go into their pocket, that these people would lose, would keep these people in a position where they were not able to move out of the middle class or lower or whatever.
And see,
in that way, a class warfare thing, which I don't normally believe in, but I could see that. I think
that's kind of smart. I mean, I generally believe that the government, or at least the dark parts of the government, definitely want to keep us dumb and poor.
Well, right.
And powerless, because otherwise we could become a huge problem to people that are trying to do terrible things on a nefarious level, So do you think this is about, you sort of just already preemptively answered the next part. I was going to say, is this about controlling women, or is this really about trying to stop murder? Because here's the thing. and I kind of want to at this point give voice to some of the women that I've been reading on social media that I have a lot of respect for. The reason so many women are mad about this is because they're sick of these lawmakers who pretend to care about them and their unborn child, like they have this massive dedication to the sanctity of life, but they support wars. They keep propping up this impossible healthcare system that nobody can afford. They do a lot of anti-life things.
It's because the sanctity of life thing itself is bullshit.
Like George Carlin said.
Yeah.
He said,
and he also said, if you're pre-born, you're safe. If you're preschool, you're fucked.
You're fucked. No school lunch, no healthcare, no
It's
anything.
like the politicians that put in these laws want to protect your child if it's unborn from situations like that. But when they're born, if they're put up for adoption, the foster care system is, from my understanding, not great. There's not like special laws to protect them from,
right.
horrible being placed with horrible parents who abuse them.
Sure.
Out of adoption.
Sure.
There's also the school system. Education's fucking down.
Yeah. Well, and somebody said that. I saw one thing where it said a state that ranks 50th in education is definitely not they don't care about your children and your unborn children. I promise you that, So there's different, and again, these are all, we're just presenting viewpoints here. We're not saying that anything's right or anything's wrong, but just these are all, when you think about stuff like this, you need to consider all these things. So there's a lot of little stuff.
I just found, and this is even what I was looking for, but Ben Carson, who is for sure a conservative.
The guy that thought
politically
about the pyramids?
I'd be interested to hear what he said about that. But in this one case, he said, there's no war on women, in quotes. The war is on their babies. So that's an isolated quote. I don't know what he means by that. But again, since we're talking about it, I thought that was an interesting thought.
Well, and I screen capped a couple of striking things I saw on social media. Here's one, and I forget who shared this. This was one of our friends in Reason Define shared this, and it was somebody named Sarah Wood, which is at Sarah Wood Ryder. When embryos are frozen in fertility clinics and aren't used, they are discarded. Republicans don't care about that. So this person is making it a left-right issue,
Yeah.
But she says, because it's not about the embryos, it's about controlling women. Okay? And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with that, but that's worth considering. And that's why so many women are mad. Here's another person. They say, you don't think the Georgia abortion law is just a way to control women? Okay, cool. Let me ask you a question. Are the fathers of the aborted fetuses being arrested for accessory to murder as well? No? Then sit right back down there, preferably somewhere in the back. So they're saying it takes two to tango kind of a thing, like the fathers have to be held accountable too. Here's another one. Let me present this. Here's a list of things an 11-year-old cannot do by law. Buy a PG-13 movie ticket, buy a lottery ticket, buy cold medicine, buy a T-rated video game, drive a vehicle, or vote. And here's a list of things an 11-year-old is now required by law to do. Carry out a full-term pregnancy.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit. And then one of my musical heroes, Tom Morello, was quoted, and he said, it's important to know that today abortion is still legal in all 50 states. If you need an abortion, contact your clinic. The ACLU will continue to challenge the bans in court. Abortion is a constitutional right, and they are doing everything they can to keep it that way. And he uses hashtag keep abortion safe and legal. So a lot of people speaking out about the issue there.
So
you wanted to go last, in talking about this, I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, my opinion, and the reason I want to go last is because my opinion is we don't get a right to talk about this.
I had that thought earlier this week.
We don't get to decide whether or not a woman gets to have her pregnancy full term or if she wants to have an abortion, because we don't know what it's like to be pregnant. We don't know what it's like to be in the situation of being raped. We don't know what it's like to be in the situation of being in just not being able to afford something like that, especially in today's economy, like you were saying with the class system.
Yeah.
I don't think a bunch of, and that's, I mean, I know there's a lot of women in politics now, but I don't think a bunch of old white men get to decide what a woman does and doesn't do and take away her ability to find safe and responsible ways to get that done. Mm-hmm. And I also really fucking hate that abortion clinics have people outside screaming at women going in to have this procedure done, because it's already tough enough to make a decision like this all on its own. I mean, that I can't even fathom what it would be like to even have to decide to make that decision.
Sure.
And having people outside scream at them and tell them they're going to hell.
Yeah.
And I know that not all Christians think that abortion is bad, and there's some Christian people who are pro-choice. Mm-hmm. But all the ones that aren't usually their reason is because God says it's wrong.
That's kind of a simple explanation. I'm not saying I feel differently. Well, let me respond to a couple things you said, and I appreciate what you just said, and a lot of people feel that way. And for years and years and years, I've had a lot of male friends that try to be supportive of women, and they say things like, "Well, first off, the male race shouldn't have any say in this at all." Here's why that's not true. I'm here to tell you this is why I've thought about this a long time, and I just don't think that's true. And here's why: because sometimes we're put into a position of having to take care of each other. So, while a guy should not be allowed to tell you what it's like to have an abortion, because no guy knows, sometimes a guy is in charge. Sometimes it's a guy performing the abortion. Sometimes a guy is the nurse that comes in after the abortion. Sometimes it's the lawmaker that happens to be a man whose job it is to serve and protect you. Sometimes the owner of the abortion clinic might be a guy. So sometimes men are put in positions where they have to take care of women, and they have to have an opinion on the issue. You know what I mean? Just like,
but you keep it to yourself.
But your job might be.
I mean, yeah. If you're a doctor and you need to tell this person, hey, this abortion could perhaps kill you. Like it could.
So
have
men
a problem.
have to know something about it, because we're kind of all in this together. You know, like that's sort of.
But that doctor also shouldn't walk in and go, by the way, with this abortion, you're going to hell, and I think you're a piece of shit for it.
Look, why would it? Yeah, exactly. And then nobody's saying that, but they're saying that there are sometimes the people that are in the constituency are all men. And they have to make a decision about something like this. So the men have to get an opinion on it. I guarantee you, I don't think many men like getting into this. I guarantee you this is a touchy subject. Mm-hmm. And a lot of men don't want to be the voice of what may upset a woman or not, you know? But if there's not a woman on the committee to speak for all the women.
Well, the lady in Alabama, the person that signed the bill was a woman.
Was it?
And she, in her statement about signing the bill, made it very clear it was religious based.
Okay.
Like, it's because, this is a child of God and it deserves to be protected.
Sure. And we'll get into that too. There's some, what do you think about all that?
I think that element's still really strange for me, because the idea that church and state are separated and should be, I think, is ultimately smart. Again, free society. So that I always fall back to that. If it's a free society, and since it's out on the podcast anyways.
And I just want to say, I absolutely love that about you, because I know you have your convictions. I know you're a Christian, and you're absolutely one of the more intelligent ones I've ever met. And you understand the importance. You understand the importance of free society.
Yeah.
Over personal conviction.
Well, the Christianity of it is what I was about to say. So for those of you that might have forgotten, Spencer just reminded you. So I am a Christian, so I do have thoughts in regards to how that stuff affects that. But I also think, because Casey and I have talked about this, not the abortion part, but the religious side of it.
Yeah.
That as one who does not identify with the religion, but the relationship-based faith, that is something that is individualistic and not governed by anything else. And in order to invite people to feel safe to even explore that, and I'll bring it back to the abortion real quick, but just on that level alone, I think, everyone should be free to question and do whatever. So speaking from that standpoint, if we're going to truly be free, I think being guided by your convictions is really important, especially if you are a religious person, because if that's what you're claiming, you want to not, wave that flag and then betray it while you're doing so.
Right.
But you also need to recognize where you are now, like the world that you live in. And if you're gonna fall on the Christian side of things anyways, just for those that have that argument, it says to give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and specifically that was regarding tithing and money and stuff. But I think that's a really
and also
safe,
that time you got written up at work. You fucking
But I think that's a really safe way to approach things that you feel uncomfortable with. And again, I'm still not going to put my actual opinion on abortion out here, but that's how I treat all this stuff. When the gay marriage stuff was happening a few years ago and everything, And I feel just the same about abortion from a legal standpoint as the gay marriage thing. There's the religious of it is personal, and that's up to you and whoever you're involved with. Legally, I don't think our country has any right to tell you that you can't.
Yeah, and I want to come back to that later about like what all this stuff means to everybody personally. Don't let me forget. I want to kind of wrap up with that.
But I just don't think that you're free if you're being told you can't do something.
Yeah, and that comes to my next point. That I've got a little list of points here on my phone. The thing is,
he's very proud of his notes.
Regardless of morality, is it okay to take away choices? See, that's the thing. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's wrong to eliminate people's choices like that, to just say, no, you have to do this thing, you have to do that thing, because what's the good in it if they don't have a choice? Like, I don't get it. And anyway, Casey, what do you think?
I was just going to say that making it a felony and like persecuting doctors who do it only hurts the women, because they're gonna find a way to do it one way or another, and it's gonna fucking kill them. If they don't have a safe way to do it?
Are you reading my notes? He's reading my. That was my next point. Abortion isn't going away, folks. That's the thing. It's not going to go away, whether it's legal or not.
My wife.
You're just going to have some teenage girl in her room trying to fucking do it herself and kill herself doing it.
That's what my wife was talking
that's
about.
Not qualified.
She brought up the Prohibition era from the 1920s with alcohol, and again, I forgive all the comparisons, but I think it does match
alcohol, drugs,
1-to-1.
The war on drugs,
and all that stuff. It's the same thing. You look at the problems that are associated with, at the time, Prohibition and now the war on drugs. The health risks involved with getting an abortion are what they are, just as it is with drinking and driving or doing whatever hard drugs. But telling people that they can't will not stop them.
Yes.
And putting the punishments in place will also not stop them. That's why there are prisons and people wind up going there. And I'm not debating the right or wrong
but
of it. But just people are going to do what they're going to do.
The government can't make you a better person.
Yeah, and that's where, again, going back to the thing I talked about originally, being able to discuss things, being open-minded and being willing to have your opinion changed, and being willing to change an opinion and not having any preconceived notions, but being able to talk to each other and be neighborly is where all this stuff from a legal and control standpoint would fall apart. What is it? A house divided?
Generally, yeah.
I was trying to remember what the phrasing is.
I believe that's the phrase.
But we're not divided if we're talking to each other.
Yeah.
That's the point.
We have different opinions. We're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
That again, that was going to kind of be my thing. What you had? Do you have some?
No.
What I was going to say here, you're right. And that way back in the day, and I've stood in parking lots and talked with people. We've had these debates for years. Is it right? Is it wrong? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I've had a lot of smart friends my whole life, and I always ask their opinion on stuff like this. But that's sort of where I came to on it. And I decided that I was basically pro-choice. Mm-hmm. And I hope that nobody has to have an abortion. I hope that nobody, I certainly hope that there's nobody that's just using it as this banal method of birth control. And they're getting 5 or 6 of them that year. And hopefully nobody's abusing it like that. Hopefully that people that are getting them are at least doing it because they believe it's the right thing, or because there's something else that, like Casey said, there should just be this thing, it's your choice, and it shouldn't be somebody else deciding if you're going to get felonized for it. But it's not going away. That's the thing. It's going to remain. They tried to outlaw drugs. Did it work? No. They tried to outlaw alcohol. Did it work? No. And there's so many things. If anything's that big and that universal, it's not going to go away. You're just going to make it dangerous, and you're going to make it. It's just going to create, when they outlawed all the drugs, they just created all these drug cartels. Mm-hmm. They didn't do anything. So I think if you want people to be safe, if you're that concerned about a life, you know what I mean? Maybe the choice. And I'm still not saying abortion is good or bad, but the thing about it is, just taking people's choices away doesn't make them better. And what about this? What if we educated people a little bit better about how to be responsible about things? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I'll tell you a story. One time, I saw Henry Rollins speak.
Yeah.
And he was talking about sex education, how people they don't have any kind of sexual education in schools. And this goes back to people that don't talk to their kids about sex, about the consequences of sex, about how you need to be ready for it. It's not just something that starts easily happening as a teenager. There's a side of it that requires a lot of responsibility. And he uses this example of this super puritanical society. I think it was in Texas somewhere, where none of the kids were allowed to talk about sex, no sex education, no nothing. And these two guys, as humans will do, went out on a date with these two girls, and they were in a car. And so one guy and his date were in the front, one guy and his date were in the back. The guys didn't know how to use a condom, but they had gotten one. They know that you have to use this You're supposed to use this if you have sex. And they were just figuring it out. Nobody had talked to them about anything. They were told, no, that's not for you. Just wait. You'll figure it out. Well, these people waited way past the point of like hormonal overload. So as people do, they were out dating. They were, you know what I'm saying? They were fooling around and whatever. And so anyway, one of the guys put the condom on, had sex with his girlfriend. And then the two couples switched places. He loaned the condom to his other friend who turned it inside out and used it with his girlfriend.
Cool.
Oh, God.
And then later, she became pregnant with
The other dudes.
his friend's child, who she never had sex with. Because these guys had no idea how to use contraception the proper way.
Yeah.
You know what the big leading thing for sex education in schools is as far as I'm concerned, like as I know from going to high school back in the day and kids that weren't allowed to do it, is religion. It's like, well, these people were like, well, my Christian child is not going to be taught about sex in high school.
And
He's going to learn it. He's going to learn it from his church, and he's going to learn about abstinence and not how to have safe sex, but just not have any at all until he's married. And that's not helpful.
It's not. And now thinking about it, that's where not being, because mom does listen. Thanks for listening, mom. And thanks for being the kind of mom that you were. She would tell you what her stance was on a thing, whether it was right or wrong. And then she would not shelter you from the darkness of anything else, maybe the degrees depending on your age, but otherwise you knew consequences. Yeah. You knew the consequences of actions, and then you were encouraged to make wise decisions, and you were raised to know that you could talk to her if you wanted to. Now, granted, the three of us didn't always. Obviously, nobody does. But there was an open avenue of communication available.
Right.
And that makes all the difference.
Yeah, and if you experience real Christians in real churches, that's how they are. They're not like the people you're describing. Those are just plain idiots.
Yeah,
and
they might be idiots, but they're hiding behind your barricade of God and stuff. And
it's not my barricade, Jack.
Well, I'm just saying, but like
I'm here preaching for people to be smart, Right,
but you guys being religious and being smart about it and having your a decent open-minded opinion, there are some people who use that as their shield.
But what I'm trying to tell you,
God says it's wrong, and they push people back.
Sure, but everybody's conviction comes from somewhere. Your convictions also come from somewhere too. Like the fact that you think, well, whatever. Like you form your opinions the same way the Christians do. Is my whole point. And the thing about this, the people who say things like that, I don't want my kid to be taught about sex because of religion. That's not just a religious person. That's a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And I'm here to tell you, sorry if that offends anybody, but if you're trying to keep anybody dumb and uneducated because of morality, that's not how it works. You're weakening that person, and you're setting them up to be in the car, turning the condom inside out, getting pregnant by somebody they never even had sex with, and then being on the fucking news. Listen, there's stupid people both inside and outside of the church.
It's like socio-educational anti-vaxxing.
That's true.
It's what it is.
Well, here's the thing. I know a lot of people, and again, most people cite religious reasons for all this kind of stuff. That's fine, but should the choice still be there? Most people I know that are real Christians that understand the theology of Christianity and all that kind of stuff understand there has to be a choice. They understand that choices aren't bad, choices are good. That's how you make the right one.
Yeah.
You have to be presented with both things. And I kind of want to, that's sort of like, driving here, I was thinking about all this stuff. I was thinking, man, this really gets people at each other's throats thinking about, because there are certain age appropriate things for children. Think about it. I know of a lot of parents that below a certain age, kids aren't allowed to have a phone.
Yeah.
No smartphone. At the age of like 4, 6, they start wanting them. No iPad below the age of whatever. And they're only allowed to use their phone in certain things. Like they can't just use their phone all the time. Phone for maybe a couple hours at night, then it goes in the drawer. Or the parents take it away. And same thing like that. I think parents are responsible for deciding what they expose their kids to. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
So at some point they have to decide at what age they want their kid to be taught about fucking, and that's,
But again,
who can say when that...
To what you were saying, Casey, that example you brought up, which I, again, having, I guess, been the most recent person to graduate high school, I remember those slips being brought in, like this is the why of it and everything. And that makes me wonder is to both of your points, because what Casey's talking about is a very real thing, and I do think it's a problem. Where's the education in that parent's brain? Like, what do they think the sex ed their kid's going to receive is? Like, that's what I want to know, because I can tell you right now, it wasn't, here's porn and this is where you put it.
No, it was like, terrifying.
It was awful.
Yeah.
They brought, I will never forget the dude that started it. Yeah, and it wasn't a horror show either. Like, that was the thing. That was truly educational. It was not, all this will happen to you and you'll be fucked for life. No pun intended, sorry. But it was like, it was just a very clinical, the ins and outs of what it is, how it works, and what can happen if you do or don't do this. And on the STD level, like, just to give a really good visual, I will never forget the guy in high school brought in a bunch of Krispy Kreme donuts, like all varieties of flavors and stuff. And he was like, I'm going to show you some pictures and tell you what it is and what causes it. And this is the STD portion of it, obviously. And he goes, and then after we're done, if any of you want, I brought these in and you can have them. And by the very nature of what they were, they looked a lot like the pictures, and not a one of them got picked up.
Oh, the donuts look like the diseases?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
It just that association alone. Like,
I'm going to go through the drive-thru at Krispy Kreme and order a box of chlamydia.
Well, on the blurb for the beginning of the episode.
There you go. That's it. But Casey's not wrong. And
do you guys have a popular assortment of human papillomavirus?
God. But I want to know, like, what they think is going to happen. Because that's a point where I think the communication can help.
I think you got to look at the numbers. Like we were saying, parents have to decide at what age to start exposing their kids to shit. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at the numbers, most kids start having sex in their teenage years. So that's when they start become sexually active. That's when they start to go through puberty. That's when high school, kids start fooling around.
I heard a horrifying statistic today, real quick on that note, that most children in America at least have had at least one sexual encounter by the time they're 13 at this point.
Jesus.
So just throwing that out there for the discussion.
That's, maybe I'm old fashioned. That's scary to me, dude.
I find it frustrating that most politicians who are backing this bill and this law being signed and basically putting women in harm's way by doing it, their argument is that God says it's wrong. And that
I have a huge problem with that.
That shouldn't be an argument.
Are you sure that that's really what they've
Especially
cited?
the lady that signed it.
Well, from the religious the religious justification is what he's talking about.
I mean, it's also the South and it's the Bible Belt, and I just think that should be left out of the argument.
I get it. I agree. When you're talking about laws, you should leave that out of the argument. But that's also, it's real easy to just automatically throw the church under the bus when everybody that I read, they just cited that it was murder, constitutional murder. That the thing, they said that it's a life, it's got a heartbeat. It's murder, not it's murder in Jesus' name, or it's murder because the Bible falls under the constitutional definition of murder.
The thing that Casey's bringing up is one that I've heard a lot.
Oh, I've heard it too. I've heard a lot of Southern religious zealots, and
that justification gets right back to if that's personally what you think, then fine, and then have that discussion. But legally, I don't think.
Yeah, you can't turn your personal convictions into a legal ramification that affects somebody else.
Yeah.
You can't imprison somebody else because of your own convictions. Your convictions should be maybe to motivate just you.
And the thing that you were saying earlier about how a lot of it is kind of speculative for like what the life of a developing infant is, I think that's a line to think about, because when we were discussing this at the beginning, I thought after we kind of put our stance on you can't tell people what to do in general.
Right.
I was like, but what about actual murder, which is the point that you just brought up. And I was like, regardless of what you believe as a person, scientifically and analytically, the difference is when you're talking about murder, there is a full person of whatever age that's there that you can see that was running around with some form of personality that has now been eradicated.
Right.
That's not the case with, that's not the case with abortion. And that's where the debating comes in anyways. But the fact is, it's in there and it's not out here yet. So we can't
it's a fierce debate.
That.
It's a fierce debate with a lot of different angles. And I get it totally, 100%. And I hate when everybody just automatically throws the church under the bus. But like every religious person is stupid and they're all a white Southern Baptist.
I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying the ones
that are
loudest about being against abortion use that as
Sure.
As their,
and that's the point that I made earlier about the women that say that these people pretend to care about children, but then they don't care about programs that actually benefit living children. They don't buy it. And I don't blame them for not buying it. And I don't like those guys either. But I just know a lot of really smart, really intelligent, really helpful, really outgoing, really charitable Christians.
Yeah, I'm sitting at a table with 2 of them.
Hey,
I think.
and again, not trying to be a role model for anybody.
But this is also why I wanted to save my opinion for the last, because I knew
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was going to be the most anger.
well, and it's and the thing, well,
But I don't think. But I
it's
don't
not
think you're
necessarily the
wrong,
most
though.
angry.
Like, that's the.
I've read some much more angry opinions this week.
I
get
heard
it.
a lot of things on Reddit about people being like, "How about we rape politicians' kids or whatever?"
Sure,
I was like,
sure.
"That's
Oh,
not going to
no.
fucking help anybody."
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I want.
That's-
That's going to be my closing statement about this whole thing. My whole point in even bringing this whole thing up is that that's the wrong way to go. Here's the thing: decriminalization of something doesn't mean you have to use it. So when they decriminalize marijuana, it doesn't mean you have to go buy it. If they decriminalize, and understand the difference between legalization and decriminalization. A lot of things are legal that wouldn't have necessarily gotten anybody in trouble, but they're talking about making this a felony.
Yeah.
To decriminalize that doesn't mean you have to go get an abortion. It doesn't take away any of your rights to your moral convictions. You can easily not have one if you think it's wrong. You can easily advise your friend that comes to you in their moment of need, hey, what do you think I should do? You could go, well, just since you ask, here's what I think. I don't think you should do it. I think it's wrong. Whatever. You can still be you. But I have the feeling that when you decriminalize, or when you make this kind of a thing a felony, you're taking somebody else's right to be themselves away. And whether it's right or wrong, like, again, it's our, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think what's important is that we don't hate each other over it. Like, while we're learning about our differences, we don't fall into that trap of hate and divisiveness. I think that's the big thing. You don't have to go get an abortion, but you might have a friend that does. And if you stop being friends over that, if you're not at least there to support your friend, if you have a basis of morality that says it's probably wrong to get an abortion, you should also feel like it's okay to support your friend in their time of need, whether you agree with them or not. See what I mean? There should at least be this. We're always going to be able to have our personal convictions. Nobody can take those away, as long as we have a free society, like you said. They don't make these laws like felonies. So I'm ultimately against these laws. I don't think that gives us a chance to meet in a good place. And I want to encourage everybody that's listening, or anybody, to, you don't have to agree with everybody about what they think, but I think you should at least, if you have people that you care about, that your friends, don't write them off because they feel differently about things than you. These are the things we can come together over, and we might wind up learning a lot about each other or other people from it. You know?
Yeah. You know, from the stretching of bones and the breaking of earth for plants or whatever, there's no way to grow without pain, and there's no way to grow without breaking earth. There's no way to grow without branching out and separating into different things that aren't comfortable right off the bat. So you just be willing to talk to each other.
That's huge. Yeah.
Okay, I feel like that's enough about this topic. This is bumming me the fuck out.
Yeah, this is kind of, I like when we do serious episodes sometimes.
No,
I think
I
it's
like it
necessary.
sometimes.
But
We did a movie episode last
right.
week.
But it's
No,
also
it's
super
like the last
heavy.
6 weeks we talked about movies.
And another thing that's super heavy is Slipknot's new song, and we can talk about pop culture things and lighter things next week.
Don't want to talk about Corey Taylor.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
I like him.
Thanks,
So
Spencer.
anyway, thank you for listening. Just again, let's reiterate. Like there's a lot of controversial shit going on. I would advise, if I had to, let's all make one final point for our listeners that we think maybe is important to remember while we're going through all this crap together. I would say, remember to not take your eye off the prize.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that's distractionary, and they know how easy it is to get people mad, and they just blow up social media with all this fighting. I would say they know you're going to do that, and they're counting on it. So maybe look for what's being done behind your back while controversial issues are being spread all over the news. That's kind of my advice.
Hate and destruction doesn't prove your point.
Yeah. Be passionate, but be humble and be kind. And if you are upset about something, Grumpy Cat doesn't give a fuck.
That's right.
Zing.
Love you, tartar sauce.
Rest in peace, Grumpy Cat.
Rest in peace for sure.
Oh my.